This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Ethiopian Airlines says crash victim DNA test will take up to 6 months. Tropical storm kills at least 24 in Zimbabwe. Entrepreneurs create sustainable business from waste products. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines. Uganda eager to put an end to illegal wildlife offenses in East Africa. The NBA's first African Academy inaugurated in Senegal. We start the bulletin in Ethiopia, where the nation's airlines has said that DNA testing of the remains of the 157 passengers on board Flight 302 may take up to 6 months, as it is offered bereaved families charred earth from the plane crash site to bury. Ethiopian Airlines is also planning to hold a service on Sunday in Addis Ababa at the Holy Trinity Cathedral. Meanwhile, a team of investigators in Paris have begun examining the black box recorders recovered from the crash site. Experts say it is too soon to know what caused the crash, but aviation authorities worldwide have grounded Boeing's 737 MAXs. Flight data has already indicated some similarities with the crash by the same model of plane during a Lion Air flight in October. The U.S. plane maker has been working on a software upgrade for an anti-stall system and pilot displays on its fastest-selling jetliner.
On Sunday morning, 8:38 a.m. local time, an Ethiopian Airlines on Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane took off from Bole International Airport with no remarks. It was on a scheduled service destination, Nairobi, Kenya. Within 6 minutes of airborne tragedy occurs. That plane crashed and killed all on board.
There were 149 passengers and 8 crew on board. We are very, very saddened. Our heart is broken for this tragic accident.
Here at the crash site, and about 70 kilometers from the capital Addis Ababa, the black box was recovered and remains of the deceased were collected. Full investigation is now underway that includes the work being done in France on the recovered voice and data recording device.
We will comply with all the international regulations, and as an airline will be fully supporting and cooperating with the investigation, and we will know the exact cause.
Ethiopian Airlines said the process of identifying the deceased through DNA results will take 5 to 6 months, but families will be provided with death certificates in 2 weeks' time.
We have already set up an emergency center here at headquarters. We have also family assistance at the airport in Addis, and another family assistance center in Nairobi. That's the destination, and most of our, unfortunately, most of our passengers, 32 passengers were Kenyans. So we are also setting up similar family assistance centers in Canada, UK, France, Germany, and other areas.
Despite the tragic accident, Ethiopian is said to be one of the safest and most successful airliners in the world. The Ethiopian flag carrier is currently the only profitable and globally representing African airliner. Confirmed reports suggest so far more than 50 nations have taken steps to ground the Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes. The restrictions range from banning the models from countries' airspace or airports to grounding that model in the fleets of airlines based in different countries. This is already a huge blow for Boeing. Experts are already blaming the US-based manufacturer for sending out insufficiently cooked aircrafts to the global market. CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
CGTN's Gerum Chala joins us from Addis Ababa. Gerum, thank you for taking time out to join us here on Africa Live. Well, Ethiopian Airlines said on Saturday that DNA testing of the remains of the 157 passengers on board Flight 302 may take up to 6 months. What is the latest?
So Ethiopian Airlines has promised that it will provide families of the deceased certificates of death as soon as possible, and in a few weeks' time, that is. But to identify who is who, due to the accidents and the amount of casualties that we've seen on the ground and how it was so harsh on them, it is really difficult to identify through DNA or other means and come up with results sooner. So Ethiopian Airlines is saying that it might take 5 to 6 months for families to learn and understand their member of the family, who is who, and to receive parts of their body that was recovered from the excavation work that was done so far. I was speaking to doctors and professionals in this area earlier, and they told me that indeed Ethiopian Airlines is telling the truth, and this is not an easy process. DNA by itself takes a long time to identify who is who and establish the truth and give families the last response. So we know the death certificate will be provided, but it will take time to identify the deceased sooner.
Well, Ethiopian Airlines is also planning to hold a service on Sunday in Addis Ababa. Can you give us insight on what the plans for that service are?
Well, since 3 days ago, we have seen different services across the capital Addis Ababa, in Orthodox Church, in Catholic Church, Muslim mosques and other places. This latest one is going to be held at the Holy Trinity Church, very close to where I am right now, around Arat Kilo area where the palace is, by the way, just to give you a picture of where that church is. It's a very historical church, and the ceremony is going to be more or less understandably to commemorate the losses of 35 nationalities due to that crash that happened. There are going to be, prayers, and there are going to be also readings of different verse of the Bible. The general idea here is to commemorate this death and also to remind everyone that this is a tragedy and we should continue life as it is in the future as well.
All right. Gerum Chala, thank you for that update. Thank you for your insight and analysis. That's Gerum Chala reporting from Addis Ababa. Moving on, the death toll from Cyclone Idai is rising as it reached Zimbabwe on Friday. The country's information ministry said that at least 24 people had died as homes and bridges were swept away by the tropical storm. Cyclone Idai, which brought floodwater and destruction to areas of Mozambique and Malawi, hit Zimbabwe on Friday, cutting off power and communications. Rescue efforts are slow as Air Force helicopters struggle against heavy winds. The country's meteorological services expect rains to continue throughout the weekend. Well, all right, we are joined by Farai Wakatuya in Harare for more. Farai, thank you for taking time out to join us here. We have reports indicating that at least 24 people have died in southeastern Zimbabwe as homes and bridges were swept away by a tropical storm. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, Richard, indeed, the death toll is rising. Latest figures we've received are that the death toll is now up to 31 confirmed deaths as a result of that cyclone. And there are hundreds, over 100 people who are still unaccounted for and missing. And that number is also expected to go up because people are being swept away in their homes. People trying to escape and get to higher ground are also, taking risks of trying to cross flooded bridges, amongst others, and are also being swept away. So, the trail of destruction continues. You mentioned there power lines that have been dropped, roads are being washed away, bridges are now impassable, and all that is making the rescue effort that much harder because these areas are now hard to access. Trees have fallen and are blocking roads. There have been rock slides in certain areas, and of course the weather conditions make it difficult for Air Force helicopters to get into that area. We also know that people are being urged to seek higher ground. We know, speaking to people who are on the ground there, telling us that some people have sought refuge in trees, amongst others, so they are protected and safe from that flooding water. And indeed, as you say, this rain will continue throughout today, but will start to dissipate, the Met Department says, tomorrow.
All right, Farai, let's talk about the rescue missions that are going on. Tell us who are involved.
Well, the Civil Protection Unit is a department of government that is has the mandate of mounting emergency and relief efforts, and they have called upon the military, the army, the police to help with this effort. They've mobilized air rescue helicopters that are able to go, well, that will hopefully get a chance to go in and rescue people, pull them out of these flooded areas. But obviously at this point in time, facing that challenge because of the weather. We also know that a number of aid agencies are on standby, setting up camps and facilities where people who are rescued can go, people who are seeking refuge can go. We know a few of the hotels in the area have opened up their doors to anyone in the communities that are affected to come through and seek refuge there. And these efforts will also not just include providing shelter, but providing food, providing medication for those who are injured and hurt, but also water and sanitation, because another risk, following injuries and deaths, the next risk will be the risk of waterborne diseases. And so to ensure that those who do survive are protected, that is another effort at a facility that is being put up.
Well, it seems that things are going from bad to worse for Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is already suffering economically. How devastating is this going to impact the country economically?
Well, Richard, you say from bad to worse, and I think the timing of this disaster couldn't be any worse. Obviously, the economic challenges that you talk about, long-running, and that ordinary Zimbabweans have been battling with. But we know that in the last few days, it has been confirmed that several million Zimbabweans will require food aid, and that's as a result of the drought that is being experienced here. So it's an extreme, from one extreme of, drought, poor and erratic rainfall that has wiped out harvests and left millions of people facing hunger and starvation, to now this heavy, incessant rain flash flooding that has also claimed lives. So that will make the challenge for the Zimbabwean government that much harder, trying to recover the economy when it will now need to set aside resources to provide relief and rescue efforts for those who are in hunger, who are facing hunger, but also those who've been affected by the cyclone. Also bear in mind, the cyclone has wiped away infrastructure, bridges and roads. They will need to be repaired and rebuilt, and it's essentially taking Zimbabwe several steps backwards and making, the challenges, compounding the challenges that ordinary Zimbabweans are facing here.
All right, excellent reporting there from Farai Wakatuya in Harare. Thank you for that update. Well, for the very latest on Cyclone Idai's impact in Malawi, we are joined by CGTN's Daniel Arap-Moy in Blantyre. Daniel, thank you for joining us. What is the latest on the floods in Malawi?
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Richard, the latest that we have found out here in Malawi is that around about 900,000 people have been affected by heavy rains and floods, and over 60 reportedly to have been killed so far, and this number is expected to rise. And we also have reported that 20 people are still missing from this heavy rains and floods. And there are apparently 185 evacuation camps that have been set up to help under emergency. So really the floods have affected 14 districts of Malawi out of the 28. And that is exactly half the country itself. So that is so far the latest that we've gathered this afternoon as we landed here in Malawi.
All right, Daniel Arap-Moy, let's leave it there for now. Thank you for your insights. We certainly appreciate your analysis. All right, it's time for a short break. You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. A whole lot more news coming your way after the break, including... Algeria sees largest protest to date against President Bouteflika. Entrepreneurs create sustainable businesses from waste products.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The fourth session of the UN Environment Assembly just concluded with experts saying protection of the globe's biodiversity will be difficult without better natural resource management. The environmental stakeholders also called for the deliberate adoption of green technologies in global economies and push of innovation in waste management to help combat climate change.
At the United Nations Environment Assembly, innovations promoting sustainable development were on display. Entrepreneurs are creating usable products out of invasive plant species and discarded waste.
We have a global problem on our hands. Water hyacinth is not just a Nigerian problem, it's not just a Kenyan problem. We have 50 plus countries in tropical and subtropical zones that are affected by water hyacinth infestation. There's a hashtag clean seas. There should be a hashtag water hyacinth transformed, whereby, there is a concerted effort to look at how we can actually transform this renewable resource into beneficial use on a scalable level.
Though I would wish that we have more and more people coming up to innovate. Like, for example, right now I'm doing a fish skin. Now, those who are killing the reptiles, like crocodile, for skin, can now have an alternative. And this is a way of actually conserving the marine ecosystem.
Global exploitation of natural resources has more than tripled in the last 50 years. Consumption of water, sand, timber and gemstone is increasing, not to mention fossil fuels like coal and oil. The United Nations warns of devastating environmental degradation unless we curb demand.
This UN Environment Assembly has decided to take on the most pressing environmental challenges in generations, steadily, committed, united and determined to seek a sustainable path for future generations. This is the moment in time that will define us. We have the scientific evidence. We have the policies. Now is the time for action.
Delegates at the Assembly also discussed whether to begin assessing and regulating geoengineering technology. These controversial innovations could pull carbon out of the atmosphere or block sunlight to combat global warming. Opponents say some technologies are backed by fossil fuel interests and could undermine current efforts. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Uganda has the only wildlife crimes court in the whole of East Africa. At a time when extinctions are on the rise, the court's prosecutors hope they will be champions of conservation. CGTN's Leon Sayenga reports from Kampala.
Wildlife crime is on the increase across Africa, and Uganda is the top transit route for wildlife products like ivory and pangolins. Over the years, authorities have continued to arrest wildlife traffickers at the entry and exit points. Now, with proper enforcement and strict laws, wildlife crime is being regulated.
We have had a very quick adjudication of the wildlife crimes. We do not have matters that go beyond even a month. This is a priority of the court, and we have had a milestone in how fast this has been done.
The court was formed in 2017. Its success has already caught the eyes of other countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia.
What we have come to understand is that mostly there is a differences between legal systems. Even within a common law system, there are like systems or procedures which are not available in other countries. So if they are positive in a way, if they contribute toward this swift and quality prosecution of wildlife crimes, so we tend to take those experiences.
Prosecutors are now keen on forming coalitions that could help streamline their legal and investigative operations across borders.
We are trying actually to come up with maybe standards, maybe not one policy, because we have different policies for conservation, because we have different ecosystems and different species which are endangered. But maybe just to come out with a prosecution policy under the ambit of the East African Association of Prosecutors.
Several East African countries continue to propose laws that spell out either heavy minimum fines or prison terms for convicted wildlife criminals. The specialized court in Uganda has already provided the chance to improve the prosecution of wildlife crime cases in the country. Developing the competences of other courts in the region will also be key in the collaborative fight to save wildlife. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Time now for another short break. We've got your sports news coming up. Here's a look at the headlines. The NBA's first African Academy inaugurated in Senegal.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's take you to the Senegalese seaside town of Salé, where the NBA's first African Academy has been inaugurated. Established last year, the new academy focuses on the development of elite African basketball players from a young age. More details with Mahia Matua.
The first contingent of the NBA Academy Africa players are hard at work. Here, nearly 70 kilometers from the capital Dakar, the 18 students from 8 African countries aged 14 to 18 are the first batch at this facility. To select the best players, the academy organizes selection camps with the help of its network led by NBA players of African origin and African coaches who seek out potential talents. According to NBA officials, this initiative gives young Africans the opportunity to perfect their skills while dissuading them from attempting illegal migration away from home.
These young people will become better basketball players and better citizens. This initiative will have a tangible impact in a few years' time. This is their first year in this facility, and we already have positive results. One of our 17-year-olds already plays with his national team, the Central African Republic. Such opportunities will abound for these young people. Many skilled basketball players will graduate from this academy, and they will strengthen their national teams.
It is a positive initiative. We believe that collaboration with the NBA could further develop African basketball. It will raise the level of our clubs, and if the clubs are strong, it will have an impact on our national teams.
Competency levels are high here, with students training Monday to Saturday, 3 hours a day. But for the students, the rigorous selection criteria and the results they've witnessed make it worth the while.
The NBA Academy is an opportunity for us Africans. Since our arrival here, we have already had many experiences participating in camps in the United States, Europe, and Australia, among others. My dream is to go as far as possible in basketball.
Mon rêve, c'est d'aller le plus loin possible dans le basketball. C'est pas toujours facile, mais
we get up at 5 a.m. for training. Then we go to class during the day.
On s'entraîne dur.
Then we resume training sessions in the evening. We usually go to bed at 11 p.m. The NBA Academy enabled me to attend that training session in the United States. I really appreciate the community life here.
The Africa Academy officially opened its doors in November 2018. To date, the NBA has 3 other training centers in the world, in addition to this one in Senegal, located in China, India, and Australia. Mahe Mutua, CGTN.
Remarkable story there. Moving on to the Jerusalem Marathon. Kenyan athletes dominated the 9th edition of the Jerusalem Marathon on Friday,